Like now she was down to 3 or so cups of coffee a day, blah, blah, blah. Like the whole thing, digestion improved, all of it. She was like her only problem after all the analyses was she was just drinking way too much water. And adding more salt to her would not have solved the problem because she would have just had simply way too much fluid in her system. She was having all kinds of ADHD problems and aldosterone, like the whole thing that rolls into cortisol. The whole system goes into chaos. So it is important that you pay attention to hydration, even though as you sort of mentioned, people tend to just kind of roll their eyes around it. Because if you're in the middle, it's fine. But if you're anywhere past, not even the extremes, but just that first standard deviation away, you're gonna have problems, and you might be thinking adrenal fatigue, you might be thinking your testosterone, like you're gonna think all these things, and you simply just haven't actually dialed in your hydration.
Yeah, I think people sometimes roll their eyes at the discussion of hydration because it just doesn't sound very sexy. It's not doesn't sound like a neurotransmitter or a hormone. It doesn't sound like testosterone or estrogen or DHEA or dopamine, but it actually is all of those things. Yeah. It sits at a level beneath all of those, but not beneath on a hierarchy, beneath in terms of a foundation. It's actually without proper electrolyte balance and hydration, none of the cells of the body can function. And then I think people also hear that, we are 70% water, and somehow that statistic alone, or that fact alone doesn't seem to stimulate any kind of actionable takeaway.
Right.
It's great, like gravity also, keeps us, from jumping as high as we like, what do I do? And so I think it's important that people understand that every cellular process in the body critically relies on having enough sodium, magnesium, potassium around, and the way that it's concentrated in fluid, water, is really the way that you allow every cell in your body to function as well as it possibly could and respond to all the sorts of kind of quote unquote high performance tools that we're talking about. The other thing I've observed many times over is that if people are ingesting too much water and also drinking a lot of caffeine and their electrolytes are low, they get shaky and they actually can have anxiety-like symptoms. So when people come into my lab to do studies on anxiety and fear, we ask a few questions, and those questions include how much water they've had that day. Also, a sort of bizarre fact, but one that I think is worth mentioning, is that when the bladder is full, it stimulates a sort of anxiety. If you ever had to urinate very badly and you're in the car where you can't urinate and then you get to the door, that's talk about an anxiety. Totally. And that's because there's a direct neural pathway from the bladder that registers the mechanosensors, how much stretch there is on the bladder, that sends a signal to the brainstem alertness areas, broadly speaking, locus ceruleus and others, that wake us up. These are when we're awake, it makes us more awake, and when we're asleep, this is what wakes us up to urinate in the middle of the night.
Yeah, that's actually why you can use night urination as a pretty good diagnostic of sleep disorders. So because of vasopressin, right? Almost exactly what you're talking about. If you're having sleep disorder issues and you're staying awake and vasopressin gets taken off, right, and APN goes straight to the kidneys, your kidneys are supposed to be dormant basically at night. You're not supposed to be filtering a lot and producing a lot of urine at night. If that's happening and say you have any number of apneas kicking on or anything going on, vasopressin keeps sending a signal, kidneys start filtering. So if you're waking up and peeing multiple times a night, that's called nocturia. That is a very, very good sign that either one of two things happen. You have some sort of sleep disorder, or two, you're drinking outrageous amounts of water. And so that's actually a bit of a backward cycle now, right? Because you're drinking way too much water, you're waking up and peeing all night, that's actually ruining your sleep. And so we have seen this a number of times with our sleep company as we go in and it's just like, you don't need any of this crap.